Hey, Laura, can you get me one of the copies of the Western, because I gave mine to that reporter. Oh, that was a lid for yeah, that I broke.
One of your kids make that for you?
Well, hi, this is John Barrasso along with Mike Enzi, and we're so grateful that you take time this evening to be a participant in our telephone town hall meeting. It is Wednesday, May 14th. We started the day with a prayer breakfast, Mike and I did, and then went to Wyoming Wednesday, which is an opportunity for anybody from Wyoming who happens to be visiting in Washington to come visit with us, have a coffee, donut, a visit, discussion. We answer questions, visit with people. It's a great opportunity, and a lot of times folks from different parts around the state see friends and even relatives here during Wyoming Wednesday. So if you're going to be back in Washington, we'd love to have you visit us in our offices and join us for donuts and coffee and juice on Wyoming Wednesday. But as you know, we get home to Wyoming every weekend. Mike, I guess this past weekend you spent a lot of time in Carbon County, but you were also in Cheyenne for Mother's Day.
Yes, and Cheyenne had kind of an upsetting event. The snowstorm put out the lights in the western part of the city, which includes Little America, which books a lot of people for Mother's Day brunch from about 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and that didn't happen. I was also in Carbon County, though, and I hope all of you get a chance to go to Rollins and Saratoga and Encampment and Riverside and all the places down there. But in Rollins, there's a Carbon County Museum that's fascinating because they've got a lot of things that are from the old prison, some of the relics of the old prisoners there, as well as a lot of Indian artifacts and one particular display that even shows how the Indians used to catch eagles to use for their symbols on their headdresses and things. It's very unique. I learned a lot of things while I was there, and they're just about to move to a bigger facility. And in Saratoga, I thought I was going to see some Forest Service people because there's a forest management company there, and what they do is it's a sawmill, and they're taking that beetle-killed timber from down there and producing it, and they could employ a whole lot more people if they could just get more of those dead trees. So it was interesting. I got to talk to a couple of town hall meetings and got to talk to a lot of folks while I was there.
Well, we like this format for town hall meetings, even though we do travel the state quite a bit. This is an opportunity we get to hear from a lot of people around the state, and they get to hear from different parts of the state. And I know, Mike, people, some of them are old hands, they know to push 0, but if you're a first-time participant in tonight's telephone town hall meeting, if you would like to ask a question, please just push 0, the 0 button, on your phone, and they'll patch you through so we can answer your question. This weekend, Mike, I was in Casper. Bobby ran up to Thermopolis to see her mom and dad, and they had a Mother's Day brunch that she went to actually on Saturday. And then Saturday night, I was in Rock Springs. They had the Louisa Swain dinner. She was the first woman ever to cast a vote, and that happened
anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, and it happened right here at home in Wyoming. There's a celebration. There's a Louisa Swain building in Laramie, right off the campus at the university, where folks can go and get more information. But this was a great celebration in Rock Springs. So, I mean, this past weekend it includes Thermopolis, Casper, Rock Springs, Cheyenne, all the different locations in Carbon County. So we try to get around and listen to folks, but also this is an opportunity with a telephone town hall meeting to answer questions. And Mike, we do have a question coming in right now, and it's from up in Park County in Powell, and I think Alan is on the phone. Hey, Alan, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi, thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting tonight.
Hi guys. Hey, on TV last couple of days, there's been some reports of the fact that some IRS employees actually are, in arrears. They're in default, if you will, on their own taxes, and yet they're receiving bonuses. Now, I don't know to what extent this issue, how big the issue is, but I wondered what kind of reaction and whether it really was something that was going on, what kind of reaction there was there in Congress over this whole thing.
Yeah. It actually is going on. I used to be in business. If I'd have had an employee that was stealing from me, I would have fired him. If it was the number of dollars that we're talking about here, we'd probably have to prosecute them. Instead, they got bonuses. I don't know how
that blew me away.
No business can run that way, and so we're trying to recoup the bonuses as well as make sure that it never happens again. But I can't believe that anybody can work for the IRS that hasn't paid their taxes.
I can't either. Let me ask you just one general question, and you can respond or not. The Obama administration, or Obama, claimed he was going to have the most open and transparent administration that there's been. Yet
in the history of the country, he said.
Huh?
He said in the history of the country.
Yeah. I mean, we have had everything from Solyndra to $150 a gallon jet fuel made out of algae, to the folks lying in front of Congress. I mean, it's mind-boggling if you're sitting out here in Wyoming or hopefully anywhere to see all this stuff going on and to wonder how in the world this isn't getting such a huge stir with the American public in general.
Well, we sure hear about it traveling around the state, and you haven't even talked about the president's failure to comply with immigration laws. You haven't talked about Benghazi. You haven't brought up the 20-some times that he used in executive orders or different things to not apply the health care law as passed. It goes on in terms of hidden memorandum, opportunities to not be forthcoming with the American people. And one of the newspapers here in Washington called his comments about the health care law the lie of the year. So
yeah.
It's astonishing, and then they keep going on it. But we're continuing on the floor of the Senate and in Washington as well as in Wyoming, calling out those specific things that you referenced, because the American people are tired of it. But hey, Alan, thanks so much.
Do you think the American people in general are sick and tired of all this stuff that is going on and are ready to really make some changes?
Well, we'll know in November for sure, but it sure seems that from the people that we're talking with all around Wyoming, that it's exactly the position that we hear. So I appreciate your call, Alan. We're working our way around the state and now into Natrona County. I think Bob is on the phone. Hey, Bob, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi, thanks for being part of the town hall meeting.
Thank you. You just referenced my question, because I understand what he's done and how illegal it is, but I want to know why Congress's hands are tied. He uses the whole situation with executive orders to come after individuals and different people and destroy them and make their life miserable, but yet he keeps changing a law that should have been tanked a long time ago, because it is totally illegal to change a law, even by executive order, and not implement certain parts of it. And because it affected me personally so much, and now I'm going into the IRS to try and rectify situations, it really bothers me. Isn't there something that can be done to make him accountable for what he's done?
There is.
Meeting the president with executive orders and just, changing this part of the law and that part of the law, but yet I have to comply, but certain people don't because he just does whatever he wants. Why can't his feet be held to the fire like ours are?
Well, our mechanism for doing that is to go through the courts. And, of course, Eric Holder is protecting him. That's the biggest protection that he has. But also we found out that somebody has to have been harmed by the action that he takes. And most of the action that he's taking...
call me. I can give you a list.
Okay.
I mean, and I understand what you're saying now, but it seems like, the courts are stacked, and in the meanwhile, we're losing our benefits and our livelihoods are being destroyed, and it's like, who answers to who? It's like, he answers to no one, and to me, that's just disgusting.
And you said it right when you said the courts are being packed. Harry Reid, the Democrats control the Senate. They have 55 votes. We have 45. So we are very actively on the floor of the Senate. I called out Senator Reid twice today on the floor of the Senate with regard to the health care law. With them in the majority, they have changed the rules so they can load the courts, and you pointed that out. I mean, they put their 3 judges on the D.C. Court of Appeals, which is a stopping place along the way to the Supreme Court. So it's the combination effort by the president with complying with that, and complicit in it is Harry Reid as the majority leader in the Senate, who's not standing up to the president and representing the American people in this one of the 3 branches of government, which is Congress. And that's to me the most disturbing part of all of this. So it takes a while to get through the court system. By then, you saw it with the illegal recess appointments to the National Labor Relations Board. We sued. We got standing. We went to court. It's been 2 years since the president made those appointments, and we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to rule. They've had a hearing earlier this year. We still don't know what the ruling is going to be. So you're 100% right. And if you have senators who are complicit in allowing the president to run ramshod over the American public, that's exactly what happens with all of this. So thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting, Mike. We have a call now coming in from the Red Desert, and Trenton's on the phone. Hey, Trenton, John Barrasso. Thanks for being part of the call.
Hey, John. Hey, guys. I appreciate your taking my call. I want to thank you for the fine job you guys are doing as well. My question is, what is the future outlook for the natural gas industry? I own a service business out here, and my business pretty much tanked to where we're about ready to leave the area. And I was just curious, what's the progress with the Keystone Pipeline and the future of natural gas?
Well, I serve on both the Energy Committee and the Environment and Public Works Committee. And, you take a look at Wyoming, we think about energy security for our country, economic growth and security for our nation, and specifically for our state, as well as environmental stewardship. And we've used our lands in Wyoming since we become a state in 1890 in what's called multiple use, for agriculture, for mineral exploration, for recreation, all of those things. And we are so blessed with an abundance of oil, coal, natural gas, uranium for nuclear power, all of those, as well as the renewables, that we continue to be really the energy engine of the country. And I'm trying to work ways to export liquefied natural gas. We had a bill on the floor of the Senate. I had an amendment about it, and Harry Reid blocked it. And this happened with a vote on Monday. We're still pushing for that. I actually got Democrats to co-sponsor it. It will help us overseas. It will help us at home. It will contribute to the revenue of the state of Wyoming. All of it is critical, and we're going to continue to fight for it. Now, the president is held hostage by his environmental extremists, some of whom are big donors to him. This guy Stiers in California, who is against the Keystone XL pipeline, and promised $100 million to Democrat candidates running for re-election and election to the Senate if they promise to block the Keystone Pipeline. So it's, it's so much of it is political that even the Washington Post has said that the president ought to just approve the pipeline. And when we do see some additional drilling, and Mike, you may want to get into this. You've been Mayor of Gillette with coal and all the issues there. The drilling that's happening isn't happening on federal land.
Yeah, nothing
right,
seems
right.
to be happening
Yeah.
on the federal land.
All the oil drilling and natural gas from Pennsylvania to New York is all private land. Pretty much all the BLM and federal lease have pretty much been shut down by the administration. I mean, we've been holding out since the Obama campaign started, I guess. Since then, the natural gas for drilling out in the Red Desert area has dropped off. I mean, we saved for a rainy day, but it's been raining for 6 years, and we're just about at the end of our rope. And I was just curious if they're going to issue any more BLM or federal lease drilling, or is it proposed to?
Well, they assure us that they've got plenty of people to do the permits and that they're accelerating the permits, but we're not actually seeing that. Probably the hope for Wyoming is that the East is busy shutting in all the gas because they don't want any fracking to happen out here, and of course that's going to leave the West for the possibilities of producing that natural gas. But I can't tell you that that's a short-term thing, because this president's against all forms of energy, so far as I can tell, even the renewables. I've been surprised at that, ways that they're trying to keep that from happening, partly by, again, not allowing anything on any federal land, and that's hurting the drilling. But we've been having meetings with the BLM and checking to see what kind of problems they're having on getting permits out, and they assure us that they've got enough people. We want to see the permits now.
Mike, we're heading all the way up. I think Tom from Crook County is on the phone. Am I right, Tom?
Yes, good evening.
Oh, how are things up in Crook County?
Well, it's pretty up here today, and we've had enough moisture for the moment so that the people are looking very positive with their calving and with the onset of farming. Now,
Good news.
I have a question for you guys. I'm assuming that the Republicans will take control of the Senate. My question is, when that happens, what significant action can be taken to block Obama's executive orders or repeal everything that he has done so far?
We're ready to go to work on that if we get the majority in November, and things are looking pretty good across the country now. What will happen is if we have the majority in both the House and the Senate, we can pass things to put on the president's desk. Now, there's a good chance that he will veto them if we're reversing what he's done before. But if we keep putting it on his desk, any time we put it on his desk and he vetoes it, we get a megaphone, and that's what we're missing now. Harry Reid doesn't even let anything come to the floor that the president might veto, and consequently, we don't get any opportunity with the national media to comment on it in a significant way. And we can both put bills on there that will reverse it, and we can go into the funding and eliminate funding for things that he's changed around by executive order. If we can get a majority, we can go back to a system where there's 3 branches of government instead of just one, and get him to understand that you cannot do everything just with a move of the pen.
Right. Well, Mike, I appreciate that, but I think the public should have an understanding, if possible, from the Republican Party that helps to define the plan for how we can put things back in order, because without that, the people who are on the margin are not going to respond to the need that we have, and that's for control.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do have plans, and we can use your help in getting that out. We've got health care plans that will repair the damage, that will replace the bad parts of it, that will get rid of the mandates. In education, we've got a plan to return education to the states instead of making it a national school board. Across the board, we've put together things. getting any kind of publicity on it is pretty tough. The national media and the big newspapers, they like blood on the floor. They don't like solutions. And so we've got them ready. We can put them forward quickly when we get in control. And to tell you the truth, I'm really looking forward to being a chairman again, because that's the real, except for the majority leader, that's a real power position, because you get to draft the bills, you get to call the hearings and invite almost everybody that gets to come to the hearing, and then you get to lead the markup on the bill and the floor debate and the conference committee, and it's possible to get some good things through that way. With a divided House and Senate, it's much more difficult. The House keeps saying that the Senate's the place where bills go to die, and that's true, because Harry won't move any of those bills along. You remember when we had the government shutdown, the House sent us about 27 different proposals for ways that we could get that opened up and the spending sorted out, and Harry kept blocking bringing any of those up until 16 days into it, and then he decided that the third one that they sent on the first day was the solution, and that was to have a conference committee to figure out the spending. And that's what we're running into. So if we have an open amendment process around here, we can get a lot of things done, and we'll get help from the other side, because there are things they'd like to have brought up too. There are several of the taxes that are on the books because of Obamacare that they would like to help us get rid of, and Harry Reid won't let any of them come up. So that's what we're up against without having a majority.
Thanks, Tom. Mike, I think we now have Pat on the phone from Cheyenne. Pat, are you there?
Yeah, I sure am. Finally
Good. Well, thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting.
Well, I have one question. First of all, I would love to see Obamacare totally go away, because I don't really feel it's good for the country. But I have another problem that has just come up recently, and I think you've heard about it on the news. I'm a 30% disabled American war veteran, and it seems as though some of these hospitals have been having these secret lists, and people have been dying because of it. You know, I don't think our country should be killing those who have served. They should serve those of us who have served them.
There are some changes that we're making in that at the moment too. There were directives. We're following up to see where things went awry, and looking at some of the directives that came out that allowed them to bypass some of the wait time reporting that they were supposed to have. Yes, that's unconscionable, and I'm sure that some people are going to lose their jobs over that. But the biggest thing is to get it corrected so that veterans can get the health care that they were promised. We also have a bill that will allow that to, if any of the wait times are delayed, to put it over into the private sector as well.
First, Pat, let me just thank you for your service. On behalf of everybody that's listening on the phone, thank you.
You know, I live for my country. I love my country, but every once in a while the government just doesn't do the right thing. But yeah, you're welcome as far as my service. I had been destined to do it ever since I was 17. I knew I was going to do it. I just don't like us to be the first one to get the benefit cuts, and the military to get their pay cut, and for the VA hospitals to treat people like this. I'm afraid it's going to happen here in Cheyenne.
Well, that's the worry, and you know we're going to have a ceremony Friday morning, and I would ask anybody near Cheyenne to participate, where some of Wyoming's men and women who have recently enlisted in the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, they're going to take part in an enlistment recognition ceremony at F.E. Warren Air Force Base, and this is an event that was started in the state. I think we're the only state that does it. Started 2 years ago out of Wyoming support for veterans and the men and women who have served, and we think it was important to recognize those who are willingly volunteering to serve before they depart for their training and their careers. So, if you're available, I think it's at 8:30 Friday morning. This is going to be in Cheyenne out at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. But there's a way we can do questions here, and Mike and I always like to know who's on the phone listening in, and so I'd ask if anyone listening is a veteran, please push 1 on your phone right now if you're a veteran. Now, if you're currently on active duty or in the National Guard, please press 2. And if you have a family member who's currently serving or is a veteran, please press 3. And that gives us a good idea. So 1 if you're a veteran, 2 if you're currently on active duty or in the National Guard, or 3 if you have a family member. And Mike, it's, there are a lot of folks who participate in this who are veterans. Now, you're a veteran. You have served and with distinction and honor, and we need to make sure for our veterans all across the country that they get the care they deserve. And I think one of the other things, Pat, is a lot of folks in Washington don't understand the distances and the rural nature of Wyoming and the Rocky Mountain West, and the fact that veterans are spread out. I mean, they came from all around the country and then they went back.
Well, one of the things that also makes Wyoming a little bit different is early on when I got to the Senate, I heard about a veteran in Riverton who thought he was having a heart attack and thought he had to go to the Denver hospital, so he drove himself down there. I said that should not happen. We should have a series of clinics across the state. And we now have 8 clinics across the state where people can save quite a bit of mileage. Some of that's by teleconferencing with some experts that can help out, and it saves a whole lot of driving. So we're kind of unique, and we're a test center for doing that, and it's proven out to be very successful.
Hey, thanks, Pat. We sure appreciate you being part of the town hall meeting. Mike, let's head up to Manderson. I mean, the beauty of this is we hear from people all around the state. Now we have Randy from Manderson on the phone. Hey, Randy, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi. Thanks for being part of the call.
Yes, thank you very much for letting me get in. The BLM has enough time to write me a letter. I'm the mayor of this town, and telling me that our water tank on the hill is painted the wrong color, that it has to be Carlsbad something or other green, or tan, I mean. And we have a lock gate there that Homeland Security told us to put there, and they don't want the lock gate there. And it dead ends right at our water tank. And they have enough time to do little trifle crap like that, but they can't do anything important like give us drilling permits. I don't know how we could dehorn these people.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being a mayor. I used to be the mayor of Gillette during the first boom, and I think that's the toughest job I ever had. And, I can see that
this has been a trial.
That's a new one on me, on them telling you what color to paint your water tank, and Homeland Security getting into it with telling you to put in a gate, and then them telling you can't have a gate. I remember right after 9/11, we were talking about how to protect water supplies across the country, and there were a lot of fences and gates and things put in, because that's a pretty critical area. But
yeah.
Yeah. So
I got that letter today, and I just shook my head. I said, man, these people ain't got nothing better to do.
Yeah, they don't even realize all the tests you have to do on that water to make sure that it's correct for the people that you serve too.
Yeah, and it's right in the middle of I went down and got a $900,000 emergency grant to fix our levee that the ice jams took out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to get protect the town, and then I get that kind of stupid stuff.
Yep, they don't know how tough it is at the local level, and the reason that it's tough is that's because where the people live. Washington, they live at the local level, and they don't even live at the state level. They live at the local level. So thanks for being willing to take care of those, and we have some people that work on some of those issues too. So we'll mention I was in Grable and took a look at some of the things that happened with their levees, and I'll have to get up and take a look at yours too.
Yeah. We're getting it fixed right now. We've been working on it for 3 days, and we're getting all of the rock out of the limestone quarry in Warren, Montana, and it's coming down. We're getting 10,000 tons of that, and then putting pit run on top of it. So we will have. We have over 600 feet of eroded levee. It's deep as 40 feet deep into the wetlands. We had 4 feet left, and it was going to break through town.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But I think we're going to get it in time. It's supposed to warm up next week, and we're supposed to get a lot of water. They're talking almost 2 million acre-feet of water coming down the Bighorn, and the Knollwood's going to add a bunch more to that. So, I mean, it's pretty hairy right now.
Well, thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting. It's brings back some old memories, Mike. I'm sure your days as mayor of Gillette.
Yeah. Floodplain's your next problem.
and we actually have a call from Gillette right now, and it's James is on the phone from up in Campbell County. Hey, James, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi. Thanks for being part of the town hall meeting.
I'm here.
Good. What's your question?
Oh, I don't have a question really. I want to know. Well, I do. This immigration deal. Got to get straightened out, and amnesty can't be part of it. You can't have a few thousand people coming across our borders every day because they figure there's handouts on this side. You got to get this deal fixed, and it's got to get fixed fast.
We're with you on that. Anytime we talk about immigration, we have an influx of people who hope that they can be here when they get to have citizenship. And that's not how it's supposed to work. They're not supposed to be able to get ahead of the people that came in legally. And we've always had a pretty extensive legal entry into the country. Of course, one of our problems is just with visitors. People can get a visa to come visit, and they're recorded in on a computer when they come in, and they're recorded in on a computer when they go out, but the two computers aren't hooked together, so we don't know who's still here. And that's creating problems, too, besides trying to shore up the border, and they seem to be having a lot of trouble doing that, too.
You know, we both voted against the immigration bill that went through the Senate, James, because it did include a pathway to citizenship for those who are here illegally. You know, the concerns I have are a couple. One is we need to really modernize immigration so that people that we want to recruit to the United States from the standpoint of folks that are already educated here, you know, to kind of send them out right away after we educate them. You'd think there'd be a better way to do that. But the other component of this is that, you know, you can't reward people that have done something illegally. So we need to modernize it. I don't think a comprehensive bill is the way to go. I think you go with a number of different pieces to deal with this, so that we, you know, come up with something that we know works. Now, one of the big problems, and I don't want to minimize this, I think it's critically important. If you're doing a bill with President Obama, and what we saw in the health care law, he chose which parts of the law he wants to apply, and then he leaves other parts that he doesn't want, and is given like 24 times, said, oh, we aren't going to enforce that part or enforce this part of the next part. You know, you're very, very hesitant to vote on something and pass something that then the president can decide to pick and choose what parts of that law he wants to enforce. So, while I think it's important to modernize the immigration laws, I'm very reluctant to give the president authority because we know what he's done with regard to the health care law. But hey, thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting, and I appreciate you taking time to be with us this evening. Mike, let's head back to Casper, and we have Suzanne on the phone right now. Hey, Suzanne, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi. Thanks for being part of the call.
Well, thanks for having me be part of it, too. I have a question on the Obamacare. I'd like to know how you both feel about the Independent Payment Advisory Board and the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovations, because these two portions of Obamacare seem to me to be very detrimental toward anyone on Medicare.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how they name things in such a nice way, and when you read through it, you see how really harmful it can be to people.
Well, with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, it's apparently flying under the. Apparently, he hasn't made the appointments to the IPAB board, but the other one is flying under the radar. They've got $10 billion in appropriations for the next 10 years, and they don't have to ever go back to Congress for more appropriations, but yet they're going to have a big part in what happens to those of us on Medicare, whether we're going to get care or not care, whether there's going to be rationing, and it's affecting Medicare Advantage to a big disadvantage.
And of course the way
taken care of.
Well, and of course the way that it does that for folks who aren't as familiar as you are with this, Suzanne, is that it they kind of make some decisions about, and this one is that these are unelected bureaucrats. They're supposed to have, some of them are supposed to have some background in healthcare, but maybe not. So you have these unelected bureaucrats who are making decisions about what the government will or will not pay for on Medicare, which may not be necessarily working along the lines of what you and your doctor think you need. So if they all of a sudden say, no, we're not going to pay for this, if there's some unelected board of bureaucrats says, no, we're not going to pay for this or that or the next thing, what it becomes to me is a rationing board, that they can then ration who gets care and who doesn't, not specifically you, Suzanne, and Casper, but people with that diagnosis not getting care.
And another thing we just learned recently is on the prevention, if you go for some preventive checkup and they actually find something, then they no longer consider that to be preventive. They consider that to be diagnostic. And if it's diagnostic, it's not free like the prevention. So some people are going to be getting bills for stuff that they never anticipated they would, and they thought they were doing the right thing for their health care, and they are, because they're discovering some things early that way, and early is easier to take care of than later. But what we're seeing is the result of the president insisting that we take $714 billion out of Medicare and put it in other new programs. If there was that much money in Medicare, what should have happened with it is it should have gone back to solve the problems. One of the things is the doc fix. I think almost everybody knows somebody that wanted to get treatment and their doctor said, oh no, I'm not taking Medicare patients anymore. If you don't have a doctor, you don't have insurance. And that's what we're seeing happen. And that $714 billion could have shorted up and made the Medicare Advantage continue to be the kind of a product that people had anticipated and were paying for. And of course, when the IPAB sets in, they have to make additional cuts. This is their solution to making cuts to begin with. They'll have to make additional cuts to keep it solvent, and when they do, there aren't many places to do that, but it goes into effect automatically unless we can find other ways to put money in there. And that's probably not going to happen in the financial situation this country's in.
Well, as I understand it, the IPAB board, these 15 appointed presidential appointees, whether they be physicians or the local tavern owner or whomever they happen to be, this board is not answerable to anyone.
That's correct.
If I should have a, quote, some sort of problem that I disagree with of my treatment, and they say, sorry, you're too old, you're not worthy, take 2 aspirin and hope you live till tomorrow, I have absolutely no recourse. I have no legal recourse. I can't take a lawyer. I can't do anything. They are basically gods, and I'm going, that's unconscionable in my world.
Well, you're right. And that's why we call it a rationing board. And even Congress can't override it unless they have to have some answers within 90 days. And it is almost impossible to override them, which is why Mike and I have been working to repeal and replace the entire health care law because we continue to believe and hear from folks in Wyoming, and I read a couple of letters from some of our folks in Wyoming today on the floor of the Senate, that it's bad for patients, it's bad for the nurses and doctors who take care of the patients, and it is terrible for taxpayers. So thanks, Suzanne. Mike, we're heading now to the heart of Sublette County, and I think we have Cody on the phone. Is that right, Cody?
Yes, sir. How are you tonight?
Good, thanks. How are things in Sublette County?
Oh, they're great. A little wet, which is always good. Yeah, I wanted to ask you what we could do about our local forest rangers and districts have signed an agreement with Western Watershed saying that we can only use 30% of the grass on forest lands for grazing. And
I hadn't seen this signed agreement, but it's been an ongoing battle.
Yes,
for
sir,
grazing
for sure. And
permits.
this is a new.
we've had legislation that I've introduced and Mike's co-sponsored as part of our Senate Western Conference to change the grazing system and to allow permits to go for 20 years and automatic approval if things get delayed. But we come out with a report in the last week or so called Washington Gets It Wrong, States Get It Right, a new report on state environmental stewardship, basically saying states ought to be making these decisions, not Washington. And we want to work with you. I'm going to try to get one of my staff members, and I'm sure Mike will work as well, to try to see if what we can do and what this specific situation as it's impacting you, Cody, because we have an administration that really, I believe, is really running roughshod over the use of public lands, making decisions, trying to take decisions away from the locals, and going way beyond the original intent of the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, to kind of push these things to comply with their own agendas.
I totally agree. They've overprotected the forests, at least in the Bridger Teton, to the point that they're dying now. I mean, not letting a log and putting out fires, and it's been trying to take its natural course with the beetle kill, and it's overgrown and not healthy at all.
Just last week we got to see a map of the West and where all the fires were, and it was pretty much all on the public land. If we don't have good stewardship with what we're doing, the grass just lays over and dies. The trees pick up pine beetles and they die, and then there's a fire, and then there's nothing to catch the rain, and that causes flooding. So there's a lot of stewardship with the public lands that need to be done, and ranchers have been pretty good about they recognize that their land needs to maintain its value, and they realize that the land that they use that's federal land needs to maintain its value. So there's some pretty good stewards there, and we need to make sure that they're still in charge.
Hey, thanks, Cody. We appreciate you being part of the town hall meeting.
Thank you.
You're sure welcome. And Mike, we haven't heard. I just realized we haven't heard from anybody in Goshen County tonight. And now I think we have Dean on the phone from Torrington. Hey, Dean, thanks for calling in. Mike Enzi and John Barrasso.
Good evening. Thanks for taking my call. Just wanted to comment. I'm a small business owner. My wife and I here in Torrington, been here for years, and just wanted to comment on how difficult it is to operate as a small business for the federal government. My God, the regulations at just about every level have become prohibitive. We do the best we can, but EPA, OSHA, DOT, it's just one ridiculous rule after another, and we feel like we just don't have any input with these agencies. They create their own issues, come up with problems that don't exist, and it's just getting really tough to operate out here. And the previous caller sort of touched on that too. These public agencies are just sort of making their own rules as they go, and they're beholden to special interest groups that really don't like business of any kind, small or large. And it's just getting really tough to operate. I don't know why people expect the economy to turn around when the federal government has declared war on business. So, and that we've known this for years. Go back to Calvin Coolidge even, and he pretty much had that take. And when he reigned in the federal government, the economy took off in the roaring 20s. And at any rate, realize we're in a different time now, but I think I'm going to have some bumper stickers made say where government goes, nothing grows, because it's really it's really hard out here. So at any rate, I guess that's my comment. Appreciate what you guys are doing. I think we're all kind of bent the same way on this issue, but at any rate, just to reiterate, there's nothing the federal government does that the state couldn't do better, especially our state of Wyoming. So that's my comment.
And yeah, one of our problems is we've got a president. I used to say we've got a president that's never been in business, and then it occurred to me that he's never even worked in a business.
Exactly.
So, and I used to have shoe stores, and So I know that some of those things that look simple to an outsider are actually pretty complicated and decisions that have to be made a long time ahead of time. And then you get the government regulations thrown in, and that really creates a problem because the small businessman really doesn't have the time to look through volumes of paper to see which parts of it apply to him. And I've tried to get some commissions in place back here to prohibit some of those regulations. And they're there. Now I just need to get them to enforce them. I also come to Wyoming on the weekends and try to get into a few businesses because any business that a person doesn't have to operate looks pretty simple, and I like to find out what those things are that the businesses are having problems with so we can see if we can solve them back here.
Well, feel free to stop by mine anytime, but it's really tough. Sort of like Donald Rumsfeld said when he sent in his tax return. To the best of his knowledge, he tried to comply, but how would anybody know if you're 100% legal? And it's sort of the way we are. We do the very best we can and run a great business, but my gosh, it's just so complex that it's. And I feel sorry for the people enforcing it on a local level. They're stuck with these federal regs that they have to enforce. I was at a meeting. The Wyoming Highway Patrol does a great job. I was at a meeting in an ag-related business. Torrington, the Highway Patrol was there trying to explain to the audience the regulations, and they had a tough time, had a hard time with it. We got a letter afterwards that they were actually in error on a few things. So, my gosh, if you can't, if the Highway Patrol in front of a group of people can't get the details right, how can we get it? How can we understand if they don't understand it? So, at any rate, I hate to beat a dead horse. I've taken enough of your time, but any federal regulations you can stop, repeal, block, tear up, please do so on my behalf, and please do the things that affect me first. I know everybody says that, and then don't touch my programs. Touch any program you want, and the ones that affect me first.
Well, we have one bill that we'll probably have to get a majority of Republicans before we can pass it, but the way that it works is that no regulation would go into effect until it had a majority of votes in both the House and the Senate. And technically we're the ones that assign regulations, although this president's gone way off the deep end on that one and is doing regulations that were never assigned. But that would give us some control over what actually becomes semi-law and actual law in effect. So I'm going to be pushing to get that bill passed.
Hey, thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting, Dean. Mike, we haven't heard from Sheridan tonight, and I think Russell is now on the phone from Sheridan. Hey, Russell, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi. How are things in Sheridan?
They're good. Thanks for the opportunity to talk in a public forum.
Go right ahead.
Hey, my question this evening is coal's kind of lifeblood of Wyoming, and it seems like the current administration has waged a war on coal, and the parties like the EPA and the DEQ. What can we do as voters to ensure we're doing all we can do, and what do you plan on doing to ensure coal is going to be sustainable in the future in Wyoming?
Well, I come from Gillette, which is kind of the heart of the coal country, and Sheridan's part of that same Powder River Basin. And this president, when he started to run the first time, said he was going to put coal out of business, and he's certainly working toward that. And we're trying to find some ways to stop that. It's actually a regional or a national problem. It's just some other states that are in it, and Senator Manchin from West Virginia is having the same problems we're having, even though he's a Democrat. And that's largely a Democratic state. But I think we're going to pick up a Republican senator from that this time, too, just because of the war on coal. And then we'll be able to fight a little bit better. But I think some of the power is going to have to go out before he actually realizes that they can't do it without coal. And I'm also disappointed that he doesn't think that there's any American ingenuity left anymore, because I think that with any energy source that we've got, we can do it better, and that includes coal. And so the companies are trying to work a blue coal initiative right now, which is a clean coal initiative, and of course they're not getting any help from the federal government. We put money out there that was supposed to be for all of the energy, and it was segregated out by type of energy, and of course The renewable energy's got 9 times as much as the coal did, and the coal was limited just to loan guarantees, but we can't even get them to give out any loan guarantees. That would help to get some things started that would enhance the coal and make it more marketable. And of course, we can't get the ports opened on the West Coast because of the myths that they believe. I got interviewed recently by CNBC, and they'd been in Gillette and actually looked at a mine and looked at a power plant and were really impressed. And when I was interviewing with them, I said, "So did you see any coal dust?" And they said, "No, we didn't see any coal dust." I said, "That's because there isn't coal dust out there. They have to spray those loads before they even transport them." So that's one of the myths that we're overcoming. Oregon and Washington don't want the coal going through there because they're sure there'll be tons of coal ash that'll be left behind. That would be valuable money left behind if it actually happens, so it's not going to happen. But those ports need to be expanded, and then we could export it to the countries that actually realize that energy is a lifeblood. Unfortunately, one of those is China. They're going to be an enemy someday.
You know, Russ, we have a way of asking questions on this and take a little poll. And so for you and for any else that's listening, this has to do with just basically federal environmental regulations, because that's what you're talking about here, federal environmental regulations. You and I know coal is the most affordable, available, reliable, and secure source of energy anywhere in the world, and we are the Saudi Arabia of coal. So what's happening is the administration, the Obama administration, has come out with more regulations to make it harder and more expensive to use coal. So the question is simple. If you believe there should be fewer, less federal environmental regulations, press 1. If you believe there should be more federal environmental regulations, press 2. Because we hear from people from all around the state, and different people in different parts of the state have different opinions on this. So if you believe there should be fewer or less federal environmental regulations, press 1. If you think we should have more federal environmental regulations, press 2. Now, Mike, we have 97% say fewer and 3% say more. So that lets you know who's listening in tonight. So, and that gives you an understanding, Russell, as well as who's part of the call and what we're hearing from around the state of Wyoming. So thanks so much for being part of the town hall meeting tonight.
Thank you guys as well for what you do.
You're sure welcome. Mike, we're going to head back to the state capitol in Cheyenne, and I think Doran is on the phone right now in Cheyenne. Hey, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi, thanks for being part of the town hall meeting.
Well, hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you guys are working for a living. Hey, I want you to play What If for me because I can't stand Harry Reid. So what if the Republicans win a majority of the Senate? That puts you guys in the majority. Who do you believe will be your speaker? And in the same sense, the Democrats will then be in a minority. And would you guess who might be their speaker? Hopefully we'll get rid of Harry Reid with those two things happening. Would you run that by for me?
Well, I think I'll let John answer that one because John is in leadership and will advance in leadership if we get the majority, and can answer those questions better. We both have a pretty good idea, but
well, it's interesting, Doran, because Harry Reid has made the announcement to the press that he was going to be the leader, whether they were in the majority or the minority. He said he already had the votes all lined up, and they had confidence in him. It's
no kidding.
I was amazed by that. So
I'm amazed too.
That's Mitch McConnell is the Republican leader. He has his own race that he's running. He's up for re-election in Kentucky this year, so he has his race to run. But if he's able to lead us to the point where we're in the majority, you can just imagine that there's going to be a lot of appreciation for all of his efforts to get us in the majority. And it's our efforts to try to turn the minority leader into the majority leader. But the big advantage of trying to take really wanting to say what's the difference, well, then we can set the agenda. We get to call the witnesses for hearings. We get to decide what bills go to the floor of the Senate. You'd have votes on the Keystone XL pipeline. You'd have votes on trade. You'd have votes on exporting Wyoming's natural gas overseas, so we could enhance our own state treasury and help our friends overseas who are being held hostage by Russia. You'd have Mike Enzi as a chairman of a committee focusing on issues of health, education, the budget, pensions, all of those issues. So it is critically important, just in terms of the direction of the country, that people who think like we do in Wyoming are running the committees and chairing things and making decisions about what comes up for votes and what doesn't.
I think it's really important, of course, but I'm also curious who you think might be the minority leader then in the Senate.
Well, Harry said it's going to be him, and none of the other Democrat minority members, hopefully soon to be in the minority, none of them have disputed it.
But there have been Schumer and Durbin have kind of been running for that position just in case Reed lost in the last election, and he comes up not this election but the next one after that. So they're going to be vying for that position again, and that'll cause some turmoil on their side, and that'll help us too.
Yeah, well, Chuck Schumer wouldn't be any better than Harry Reid. That's
actually,
my opinion.
You're absolutely right. Harry Reid is much more conservative than Chuck Schumer is.
That's right.
But Schumer's been driving him to be more liberal, and that's why he's got gray hair he's got now.
Got time for another comment from me?
Go right ahead.
One of the ways to solve an awful lot of problems is to go ahead and sell a bunch of this federal land, put it in private hands, and it'll be much more well cared for, and you can take some of that money and pay it down on our national debt. That's all I had to say, fellas. Thanks for humoring an old Republican.
Well, John and I just had some seminars on public land, and at one time the eastern states, the first 15 states, which is 2 more than the original 13 colonies, had a lot of public land, but they were able to get the public land given to their state. And then the ones along the Mississippi River banded together and got rid of their public land the same way. And then the people east of Colorado all did that. So we're taking a look at how they manage that to see if we can't get a little bit more state control over some of the land in the state so that it'll be taken care of better like our state land is.
And Mike, I think that plays right into the next question, because Marty from, I think, Lincoln County is on the phone right now. Hey, Marty, John, and Mike, thanks for being part of the town hall meeting. I understand you have a question about public land.
Yes, Senators, I do, and boy, I couldn't have said it any better. We have either 42 or 48% of Wyoming is managed or controlled, not owned by the federal government. 74% here in Lincoln County, and we're part of a coalition of the 12 western states to get the federal government to relinquish title to these lands back to the states. And I understand that you two are on board, and I'm hoping you can work with your counterparts in Colorado. Colorado's not with us. We need Colorado on board. But, they just burned a whole section of the Bridger Teton Forest in the Hobart Junction. So there goes our mule deer habitat, elk habitat, and no one realizes the value of that beetle-killed timber. Architects and interior designers are clamoring for this wood, yet the U.S. Forest Service, in their mismanagement of these lands, sees fit to burn it down. So we really need you all in Washington to work with the 12 western states and get them on board the transfer of public lands effort that we're doing. It's just got to happen before they burn everything down, kill off all the grazing that ranchers around here have enjoyed for centuries, decades. But the federal government has just got to get out of our state lands. So whatever you can do to help us in Washington, we'd sure appreciate it.
Well, we've already been working with some of the eastern states to point out to them that they were able to get the land turned over, and it's really interesting to see the expression when they think they didn't ever have any public land in their state, but to let them know how it got turned over. And there's an interesting article in Popular Science this month that talks about building skyscrapers out of wood, because if you use wood, that's already captured carbon, and if you make it into a building, it keeps it as a solid forever. If you burn the wood, then the CO2 is released in the air. But they're talking about building skyscrapers out of wood, and I think that might be used for some of this beetle kill, too.
Well, we appreciate you being part of the town hall meeting, and your call was perfect because we had just kind of gone from that one topic, and you helped us so much. And, Mike, this has been very helpful to me, and I hope to you, too. We've had calls from all around the state. I mean, we were up in Crook County, we were down Goshen County, and in Cheyenne, and we were at Rock Springs, we were, up in Gillette, the Bighorn Basin. I've heard from Sheridan, Mayor Manderson was on the phone, the Red Desert, up in Park County, DePaul, Bighorn County, and it's helpful to me, and I know you'll be back in the state. I'll be back in the state again this weekend, listening to people. But these telephone town hall meetings are, I think, a great opportunity for us to hear from folks from everywhere in the state, and for people to hear what else is going on in other communities within the state. So I appreciate just having the chance for the two of us to do this and hear from people.
Yeah. Well, this fits in with our regular meetings with Cynthia, too, to kind of coordinate the efforts and the problems that we're all hearing about in the state, so that we can be concentrating on them. Because there are quite a few problems that are solvable without doing legislation. And those are usually problems that individuals are having with the federal government, where the federal government is being vindictive or overreaching. And so sometimes we can solve those, and we've got 3 different personalities, and so we're able to talk to just virtually anybody. Somebody in our delegation can talk to anybody. And we've gotten a lot of success that way.
Well, if anyone would like a copy of this report, Washington Gets It Wrong, States Get It Right, you can get it at my website, www.barrasso.senate.gov. Lots of information on Mike's website as well,
www.nz.senate.gov. Yeah, just plug in the name and put .senate.gov, and you can get any senator's information that you want. But we'd particularly like for you to go to our websites and see some of the things that we're working on that we don't have time to mention in these things. I think we counted up that we're working on 164 different bills that will affect Wyoming.
And we have offices around the state. In addition to the office in Washington, you're invited back for Wyoming Wednesday here, but I have an office in Casper, Cheyenne, Riverton, Rock Springs, Sheridan. Mike, you also have one in Gillette and Jackson as well. And so we want to, we're spread out so we can hopefully together serve more people along with Cynthia.
I left out Cody too.
Oh yeah,
Cody.
We're very fully spread out around the state. If there are ways we can be helpful, please let us be helpful. Whether you want a flag flown over the Capitol for a graduate, or you have a young person who wants to go in the military academies, we want to help with that. If you're going to be in D.C., we'd love to know and arrange for tours, and we want to make sure we see you when you're back here too.
Yes. And of course, we're hoping that if you know young people out there, you're encouraging them to be a part of the Congressional Awards, which is a way they can get credit for actually doing community service. And we want to encourage young people to do community service because it becomes a lifelong habit. And Wyoming is a state of a sense of community, pretty much across the whole state. It's been said that we're one city with extra long streets, and that's kind of the sense of community we have. But our towns are small enough that you get to know everybody and you can help out. And so we're a very helping state. We donate more per capita than any other state when there's a crisis.
And I think in terms of military service, the percentage of people in Wyoming who serve is very, very, very high. The other is if any of you have young folks that are interested in doing an internship. I have internships, as do you,
yes,
here in Washington. I also have some in my state offices. And it does seem that you get to know somebody as an intern. Some of our best employees who work either full-time for me in Washington or in Wyoming working for the people of Wyoming are folks that did internships with us.
Yes, and of course I'd mentioned that for interns we like to have people that probably had a couple of years of college or tech school, because then they're actually able to do something while they're here. And unlike some of the other offices, our offices like to make sure that we're moving forward on Wyoming problems and Wyoming bills, and so we expect those interns to have some background that'll help us out with that. But it's quite an experience for them, and we get quite a variety of talent to come back here and help us out for a semester at a time.
Well, Mike, it's always a joy to do this with you. I know people have their evenings to get back to at home, but we sure appreciate you taking time to visit with us tonight on this telephone town hall meeting. It's I hope has been helpful to you. It's certainly been helpful to us. And on behalf of Senator Mike Enzi, I'm John Barrasso. Thanks so much for being with us for this telephone town hall meeting. Thank you and good evening.